Hey everyone, this is going to be video 4 of our series in Kingdom Conquest 1. Today we're going to be talking about units, and we're going to cover races and the tiers. We're going to talk about attributes and also get a basic overview of the different skills of monsters. So let's jump right in. Let's pull up a monster and look at it. Alright, the race of a monster is displayed up here, and this is the dragon race. And also at the bottom of the card you have a symbol, and that symbol indicates also the race. This is the dragon, this is the spirit, this is the beast, and so on. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 different races broken down into 3 tiers. A tier 3 monster is that's a beast. A tier 2 is a demi, a spirit, and an undead. And a tier 1 is an angel. Now angels have not been released yet. But it's an angel, a dragon, a demon, and a giant. Now, what's the difference between the tiers, or why does that matter? For the most part, it doesn't matter, but you need to keep it in mind if you're factoring speed and attack and stuff like that. And we can talk about that later on in a different video. But essentially, if a tier 3 monster, a beast, fights another tier 3 monster, or a tier 2 fights a tier 2, or a tier 1 fights a tier 1. Dragon versus dragon, demi versus demi, beast versus beast, you don't have to worry about it. But if a tier 3, alright, like a beast, fights a different tier, like a tier 2 or a tier 1, that beast is going to suffer a penalty. Alright? A beast suffers a 30% penalty in stats when it fights a tier 1 monster, like a dragon, demon, giant, angel. That same beast would only suffer a 20% penalty when it fights a tier 2 monster, like a demi, spirit, and undead. Now the demi, spirit, undead would, similarly get a 20% bonus, alright, against that beast. Now these tier 2 monsters, they're going to suffer a 20% penalty against a tier 1. So a demi or a spirit or an undead, when they fight a dragon, demon, giant, or angel, are going to suffer a 20% penalty. But they'll get a 20% boost against a beast. And then finally, the tier 1 monster, angel, dragon, demon, giant, will get a 20% boost versus a demi, and a tier 2, a demi, spirit, undead, and also a 30% boost versus the beast. And this boost again is all in stats, but it's important to keep that in mind because, again, if you're trying to set your stats to a particular amount or level, you really have to pay attention to whom you're going to be fighting. So those are the races and those are your tiers, and now let's talk about the attributes a little bit. This list right here is your attributes for a particular monster. You have attack, defense, intelligence, speed, siege, range, stamina, and we'll talk a little bit about the rest of the stuff on here. This is the current level of the monster. This is the cost of the monster up here. Remember we talked about cost? You can have a certain maximum cost that you can form a unit out of, and you cannot exceed that, so cost is obviously going to be a very important factor when you're deciding what you want to make for your unit. You have your EXP, the EXP needed to go to the next level, and the current monster count. So let's talk about attack real quick. Attack is an attribute of your damage. How much damage are you going to do? It's based on attack. Now, damage is also a function, if we're just talking about a normal attack, there are skills that perform an attack, and a lot of those skills, though, are intelligence based. But if you're just going to do a straight up normal attack, and a normal attack means, we're going to ignore skills. And it will say in the log, in the battle log, normal attack. A normal attack is based on 2 things. Well, I guess 3 things. Your attack, their defense, and your monster count. Basically, in a nutshell, if your attack is greater, there needs to be a certain amount greater, is greater than their defense, you're going to do 1.1 times your monster count. Alright, so if your monster count is, let's say, I think it's either 1.1 or 1.2, but let's say your monster count is 9999, or essentially 10,000. Now that's the maximum monster count you can have, unless you add a particular skill on, and we can talk about that later. But if you have maximum monster count 9999, how much damage are you going to do? You're going to do about 11,000 damage if your attack is greater than their defense. If your attack is not greater than their defense, so if they have a higher defense than your attack, what's going to happen is you're going to do something called minimum damage. And minimum damage, I forget the exact number, but at 9999 monster count, it's only going to be about 300, give or take. So you're going to do 300 damage to them if your attack is less than their defense, or you're going to do maximum damage to them, 11,000 monster count damage, if your attack is greater. Intelligence is and similar. It it affects a lot of different skills. Your speed is going to affect two things. It affects your dispatch time, how long it takes you to get from point A to point B. It also affects the attack order. If we're not including, there are skills which can affect who goes first in a battle, but for the most part, the faster monster goes first. Your siege damage allows you to destroy castles and conquer enemy territory, so that's important. And then also range. I'm going to cut it off here, guys, because we're about 10 minutes, and I'm going to continue this in part B of our video for video number 4. Thanks.